Hello and welcome to our Passport to Teach webinar. My name's Janice, and today we're going to be walking you through our Teach Away application process. So this is really important to make sure that you have filled it out correctly. So this might be a review for a lot of you, but if you tuned in last week with Miller, who is one of our placement coordinators and recruiters, you might have heard him say that it's really important to make sure your profile is filled out correctly. This just helps our recruiters easily take a look at your profile, match you up with the job description and job requirements, and help you find a job ultimately. So I'm just going to go actually onto the Teachaway website. So I'm going to assume that most of you have applied for an account already. If you haven't registered, you want to click this green Apply Now button. So I'm just going to go in to my dummy account instead, because I know a lot of you have already registered. So this is my dummy account. So I've clicked that register button. I filled in my basic information such as address, availability for interviews and whatnot. But you can see that I haven't filled out any of my education, certifications, experience, and so on and so forth, because this area is not green. Once you have filled it in, there will actually be a green check mark, and these boxes will be green. You can also see that my profile is only 15% complete, so that's how you know that this profile basically is not ready to be screened. Just want to touch briefly on the profile information first. So you can see right here, my profile is under Certified Teacher. I'm just gonna go back to this PowerPoint here and go through what we mean by the different teacher categories. So the three most common teacher categories that we have are ESL instructor, licensed or certified teacher, and director and principal. So this kind of provides the guidelines for what types of jobs you should be looking for, and this helps you use the job board more easily. So when we're talking about ESL instructor, we mean that you have a bachelor's degree. This can be any bachelor's degree, such as a Bachelor of Arts or Education, and optionally an ESL teaching certificate. Generally, you would have a native proficiency, speaking proficiency in English, and then you would count as a ESL instructor. If you're a licensed or certified teacher, this means that you have a bachelor's degree. Oftentimes, this will be a bachelor's degree in education, and you have a teaching license issued by state. So what I mean is something issued such as by the Ontario Ministry of Education. As well, there is also director and principal category, and oftentimes this is a bachelor's degree, teaching license or administrative license, as well as 5 years of teaching experience. And obviously, if you have other degrees such as master's, that would definitely help you with something in this role. There's also other categories, but those are a little bit less frequent, so you can ask about that in the question box if you have questions. So going back to my profile here, as you can see, it's 15% complete. So we're just gonna start completing it together. So first thing I like to do is add a profile picture. I don't have a picture right now, so I'm just gonna skip this. So pretend that you've added it along with us. Usually it's a professional headshot with a clear or not very loud background. So once you have added this bar should actually move up, I think 20%. And then we're just gonna move on to education. So what we mean by these different items here, you can actually see a detailed description by clicking the question mark button next to it. So any completed post-secondary degree. So you can just click this blue Add Degree button and start adding it. I'm just gonna add in something random. place of issue, you should put province or state followed by country. And then institutional delivery. So once you fill this in, you can click add degree. And now it's in there. So if you have any more degrees to add, such as a master's degree or a doctorate or anything, you can just click this blue add degree button again and start adding it. If you know, sometimes we get questions about people who are still on their way to completing it, I recommend that you add your degree with your expected date of completion as end date. So I'm just gonna skip this. And this is really important, so I just want to make sure we spend some time on this. But once you've finished adding anything, or once you finished basically finished completing a section, so in this case the education section, you want to click this no more items button. This shows that you don't have any more things to add, and it lets our recruiters know that you've completely filled out this section. So I'm just going to click it. It's just loading. So there you go. This section is now locked because I can't add any more degrees. If you do want to add more items though, you can click the unlock button, and then the blue button for add more degrees will come back. And for this, if you want to make changes, you can click this button, this pencil icon, or you can also click this trash bin icon if you want to just completely remove it. But make sure you add the items back in if you have deleted it. So moving on to certification. Oh, as you can see, education now has a green check box. Well, the whole thing is green, and there's green check mark. So the second part is certifications. So what we mean by certifications, we are referring to teaching licenses issued by your home country or state, or ESL teaching certifications. So this specifically refers to things such as TEFL, TESOL, CELTA, DELTA, but this isn't counting ESL proficiency exams. So these certifications refer specifically to teaching English or teaching ESL. So you can start adding your certifications here. I'm just going to add this ESL one. So yeah, generally it'll be these ones. And that's my TEFL certificate. I'm also going to add a teaching license. So when you're filling this part out, this part says subjects, make sure you fill out any applicable subjects that you are certified to teach. This is really important because sometimes some schools or countries will have restrictions on whether they can hire people that don't have the qualifications, so make sure you include it. And by that I mean if they're hiring for a science teacher, they might actually require you to have a certification specifically in science. So make sure you fill this out completely. A lot of times if you're teaching younger grades, this will be all subjects. But I'm going to say that I'm a science teacher. And I can do science in biology and chemistry. And again, for grade level, same thing. You want to make sure that you have selected all the grade levels you're certified to teach in. So I'm just going to do that. And then issue date. And place of issue. And there you go. So right now I have my TEFL as well as my teaching license. And if you have any more, you can certainly add it right here by clicking the blue button. Or if you have no more, then you can click the yellow button to lock this section. So it's just loading right now. Okay. So moving on, you can see my certifications is now checked off. Now I'm going to work on my experiences. So again, we can click the question mark for the summary. So experiences, we're referring to any teaching experiences and don't include any work experience unrelated to teaching, sorry. But if you are applying for vocational positions, then include any relevant industry experience. So I'll get to that in a little bit when I go through different the job board and different positions available. But we're just gonna go and fill this in. So you can also include things such as tutoring or any teaching experience that you have, even if it's part-time. So position title, good to do high school science teacher. Type teaching. And once you click teaching, all this will drop down, just as a little refresher on what we mean by curriculum here. But I'm not going to get to that yet. I'm just going to keep filling this out. And subjects. Again, make sure you fill out all the subjects that you have taught. And as well as grade level. And curriculum, you want to make sure that you fill out the curriculums that you have taught as well. So sometimes, for example, IB schools will require you to have IB experience, and it's always a plus as well if you have the matching curriculum. So make sure you add this in. If you have the regular or more common state or national public school curriculum, you can just click this one. And for this one, percentage full-time, just want to clarify what this means, because we do get asked about this quite often. Basically, it means whether if you're working the standard 37 plus hours, then that would be 100% full-time. So that's your full-time job. If you're, say, tutoring, for example, and this might be your experience while you were studying your undergrad, if you worked a few hours a week, that might be 10% full-time. You can kind of just divide it by the number of hours that is full-time. So 5 out of 37, whatever that percentage is, you can fill it in here. So for this high school science teacher position, I'm just going to put 100% full-time. And this is also really important, this checkbox here. It says, this experience is after I have received my teaching qualification. So what we mean by that is some jobs, when you look at the job requirements and it says you need 2 years teaching experience, that specifically refers to post-qualification experience. So any experience that you have gained after you have received your certification. However, obviously, if you have more experience, such as your practicum, we recommend that you add that in here. And obviously that would not be after your teaching qualification is received. So leave that unchecked if it's your practicum or tutoring before you have received your qualification. If you have received it, then you can click this off. So you can continue to add more work experience if you have any. I'm just going to move on and lock this section. And the second last maybe, depending on your situation, the last thing you need is your resume. So you can click this button and add your resume here. I don't have a resume on hand on my computer, so I'm just going to skip this, but make sure you complete that. So you should have education, certification, experience, and your resume. Other documents you don't need at this time if it's just your initial pre-screen interview. Once you have chatted with a placement coordinator and they've screened you and you're moving on to the next stage, they'll ask you to upload documents. But it is good to have these kind of on hand, or at least you should know where they are if they're stashed away somewhere, because sometimes the application process can move fairly quickly and you need these documents for visas. So these documents we're referring to include teaching license, TEFL certificate, degree or diploma, scans of these, cover letter, which is really optional, transcript, and reference letters. So say you upload your resume, you can actually start applying for jobs, but we're also going to address dependents just in case right now. So if you have any dependents that are planning to move abroad with you, or you're planning to take them abroad, you should make sure to fill this out initially, because this kind of gives the placement coordinator a sense of what your needs are, and they'll try to match you with a school that is able to accommodate your needs. So you can click this question mark again. As you can see, please only include dependents who will be traveling with you, and dependents should be legal spouse or children under the age of 18. So you can click Add Dependent and start filling this out. This is just really random. Sometimes we get questions about filling in passport information for your child. Oftentimes, really newborn babies or toddlers don't have passports, so you can just leave the information here as just dummy information for now. Just make sure you refresh it in the future. You can also ask your placement coordinator more about this during the pre-screen. Also want to touch base on the two requirements of a dependent. Again, I just want to emphasize they should be under the age of 18 if it's a child, or if it's a spouse, then sometimes depending on the country, you may or may not have to be legally married. Again, when you're chatting with your placement coordinator, they can give you more details specific to the country. It's just because of visa requirements that some countries will require to be more than just common law, but actually married. So, say this is done. I'm just gonna lock this again. Alright. So this is basically profile that's ready to apply for jobs, except for the cover photo and resume, which I don't have with me, so I can upload it. But let's say you're ready to apply for jobs. I just want to talk about references really quickly. You can click the question mark here. Adding references is optional and can be done any stage of the recruitment process. So, I mean, initial pre-screen stage, you really don't have to upload this. It's definitely something that's necessary later on, but sometimes if you're trying to keep your job hunt on the down low, then you definitely don't have to fill this out yet. So you can just leave that for now. I'm just gonna go to the job board and walk you through how to find jobs that are right for you. So you can click the top right, view teaching jobs, or if you're just on teachaway.com, you can click this view teaching jobs abroad or this view teaching jobs here. So I just click that green button here. And this will take you to our job board. So this is basically all the jobs that we have that we're recruiting for right now. So you can start finding a job by matching your teacher category. So again, you can take a look at this chart and see what you have. And what I recommend is you click this any position field and match it with the teaching job that you're qualified for. So as you can see, there's also more specific early childhood jobs, college and university jobs, aside from the three that I've mentioned before. So we're just going to go to certified for now. We'll go through the other ones in a bit. So I just clicked search here. So right now it's displaying any all jobs from any country that are certified in any subject and any grade. So you can see these jobs now here. It's quite a few. So maybe you remember from my profile that I'm actually a science teacher, so I'm just going to type science here. So by matching the subject that you're actually qualified in before you think of destination country, I think is the most useful. Just because you don't want to limit yourself to options, and it kind of gives you a sense of what jobs are out there that are specific and relevant to you, and just like everywhere in the world. So all these are science teaching positions. If you want, you can narrow it further here, but sometimes I just like to see all related science teacher positions. So each job here will have a little summary of the job title here, or job name, where it is, and start date, and eligible candidates, and grade level. So this one, you can see that I've applied for already. I'm just gonna go into this one. So high school chemistry teacher. So when I'm looking at a job, the basic, or the easiest way to look at it is to just look in these charts here. So you can quickly see if you're qualified or if it's if it interests you. So you can see start date 2017 August, 3-year contract, licensed teacher. So again, that's a license issued by state or country. Student level, salary, how many vacancies. So this is specific to this particular job. So we're actually helping Abu Dhabi Public Schools hire 60 chemistry teachers. Job benefits. This is really important. Sometimes if you're taking a look at just the salary, you might not have a good sense, because some schools will offer you a higher salary but no accommodations, and some schools will offer you a slightly lower salary but have accommodations provided. So make sure you take a look here and see what the whole package is. And you can see that accommodation is provided for teacher and dependents. Vacation, airfare, and so on. And this is really important. Make sure you take a look at qualifications and requirements. So required certificates, teaching license or credential. Minimum education is bachelor. Minimum teaching experience, again, this refers to post-qualification teaching experience. So after you have received your license, so this is 2 years. And this particular job actually requires you to major in chemistry. It says here, teaching certification must be in chemistry. And it also says here, you have to be able to attend an in-person interview in these places. So for the majority of the jobs that we recruit for, the interviews will be over Skype or phone. But for several programs, such as this Abu Dhabi Public School program, you'll actually need to attend an in-person interview. So if this is something that's not within, if this is something that's not doable for you, you don't want to go to an in-person interview, make sure you take a look at this bottom right section and see if an in-person interview is required. The placement coordinator will also tell you during the pre-screen interview, which is just over the phone. So if it says in-person interview is required, we'll still send you a pre-screen interview before you have to actually fly out and interview. And just a quick note that this in-person interview, you actually have to pay for the flight and accommodations for that. But oftentimes, if you're invited, you are likely to get a job with that program. So now that you've looked at the qualifications requirements and know whether you're qualified, you can take a look at this side. So this is basically how I would go through it if I'm looking for a job. So you can take a look here and read the description. There's also a bit about the UAE. And if you're ready to apply, you can just click this apply button. So I know it's a lot of work filling out the application in the initial part where you have to fill out education, experience, and whatever. But when you're looking for a job, it makes it so much easier just because you can just click apply and click this blue apply button and submit your application. So again, just make sure you meet the minimum requirements and then you can click apply, sorry. It's just loading. Oh no. Okay, so my job application went through. So you can actually see the applications or all the applications that you have on your dashboard. You can go to that by clicking dashboard. And then clicking applications. So these are the jobs I applied for on this account. So this is the one that I just applied for. And you can see it's submitted and it's pending review from the recruitment team. And we also get questions about what closed means. So if your job is closed, this unfortunately means your application was unsuccessful. So that could be that either you're not qualified or you haven't filled out your application properly, or you haven't uploaded your resume, so we actually don't know anything about you, so the recruiter closed it. But hopefully after this webinar, you wouldn't have that happen to you. But it could also mean that we've stopped recruiting for that position, or we found other candidates that can fill this position. So that's basically it for that. I'm just gonna go back to the job board briefly and touch on the college and university vocational positions. So you can just click college and university here. So these positions require a little bit less in terms of you don't necessarily need a teaching license. As you can see, you can just be a university graduate. But if you go in and take a look, you'll see the job requirements. So that's kind of what we were talking about before with the different industry experience. This job does require 3 years of teaching experience still, even if you don't have a teaching license. And I think that's basically it. So if you have any questions, you can ask us on the question box. Otherwise, next week we're actually going to wrap up Passport to Teach, and we're going to have open office hours where you can ask your questions, and I'll be online answering them, and you can join us by going to join.me/teachway, and that will be Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, and Tuesday, February 28th. So if you have any questions that you have, make sure you ask them at that time, and we'll see you next time.